guys, and welcome to today's video. So I have been asked to do more videos on my Chahoua, Mr. Drogo here, and I've actually wanted to do more, but I didn't really know what you guys wanted to know about him, so I thought I'd do a Q&A. And by the way, I do have a Chahoua playlist, so if you want to learn more after this video, be sure to check that out. But anyway, the first question comes from Melina. She asks, what is their scientific name? Lots of love from Greece. Thank you, Melina. Well, they were previously known as Rhacodactylus chahoua, but they are now known as Miniaro Gecko chahoua. This is actually where we get their nickname Chahoua from, instead of saying their long name Mossy Prehensile Tailed Gecko. It's kind of similar to how giant New Caledonian geckos are often referred to as lychees. The next question comes from Nasib, and it's, how long do Chahouas live for? I think it's believed they live 20 years or more. I think it's a similar situation to Crested Geckos, where we haven't had them long enough in captivity to say so for sure. According to Reptile magazine, they are meant to live anywhere from 20 to 30 years, and if you're shocked by this and you're watching this channel, then make sure you know leopard geckos and crested geckos also have lengthy lifespans, so these guys are definitely quite a commitment. The next question comes from William, and it's, how big do Chahouas get? So basically there are two locales, as mainland and Pine Island. Mainland tend to be smaller than Pine Island ones. Drogo is actually a mainland Chahoua, but anywhere from 8 to 10 inches, so 20 to 25 centimeters, including their tail, is meant to be a good length for her Chahoua. And by the way, I swear, like, their tail takes up most of that. And unlike the Crested Gecko, Chahouas can actually grow back their tail. Puff the Pancake asks, how long is he? So last time I measured Drogo, and I don't think he's grown any more since, he was 23 centimeters long, so smack bang in the middle of the size guide. The next question comes from Justem. Does Drogo bite? Actually, no, I have never been bitten by Drogo. I've never seen any aggression at all from him. I don't believe they're even notorious for being particularly bitey or grumpy, unlike some other geckos like lychees. Next question comes from Amy. Does Drogo like being handled? Yeah, I mean, he will certainly let me pick him up and get him out. He likes to run and jump. He is very, very active. But of course, similar to Crested Geckos, if you've seen my bonding video, you'll know even particularly calm geckos sometimes just don't want to be handled. And I'd say Drogo is probably a lot quicker than Lyra. If he doesn't want to be handled, he will just quickly run off and hide in an instant. He is very fast when he wants to be. Next question we have comes from Gimme a Mocha. Interesting. Can a Chahoua and Cresty be housed together if it's two females, and can they crossbreed? To be honest, I probably wouldn't house them together. Like, they do come from the same place and maybe they would cross paths in the wild, but when you're restricting them to a cage, I just personally wouldn't do it. I don't think. That's just my personal take on it. However, technically you can crossbreed Chahouas and Crested Geckos, and with any kind of hybrid, I think there's always a lot of debate around the ethics of breeding them. I don't really have a particular stance on it. All I know is Lyra once saw Drogo through the glass of her tank and went crazy with what can only be described as like gecko flirting. So I think she's really crushing on him right now. But yeah, the hybrids do exist, and I feel like they kind of look somewhat similar to slender prehensile tailed geckos, which can also be found in New Caledonia. You can kind of see how they're quite similar, right? The next question comes from Gus Dog. Are they harder to care for than Crested Geckos? Are they a lot more expensive? And we had a similar question from Kian. How different is their care to Cresties? Because I have a Crestie and want a Chahoua. Honestly, I think their care is almost identical, but Chahouas tend to want and need more feeder insects, and preferably live ones. I just feel like they will hunt them down a lot better than Crested Geckos. Other than that, temperature, humidity, setup, all of that is pretty much the same, so a lot of my Crested Gecko care videos can also be applied to Chahouas. The biggest difference I'd probably say is price and availability. They tend to be fairly expensive. I think Drogo was my most expensive gecko. I think he is about £150, something like that. This moves me swiftly on to the next question from Clay Art Girl Charms. How can I get one? To be honest, tracking down a Chahoua was tricky. Firstly, and kind of thankfully, you don't see them very often in shops, because when breeding, Chahouas are very calcium sensitive, and it's often good practice to give the female a year off after breeding so she can recover. The best bet is to look for decent breeders to either buy directly from them, or get them shipped to you, or find them at an expo. For me, I finally tracked down a breeder. It felt like every time I found a breeder, they just sold all their babies, but I found one. It's a really decent breeder. I organised a courier who specialises in transporting reptiles, which wasn't cheap, but definitely worth it. And finally, we have a question from Alex. Would you rather recommend Crested Geckos or Chahouas? Now, since their setup, care, diet, their size, lifespan, all of that is pretty much similar, that doesn't really come into it. We can kind of cancel them out. You know, you can't really compare things that are the exact same. I think the biggest difference, as I mentioned, is price and availability. But if you're really into Chahouas, you really want one, you can afford one, you can care for one, then go for it. I think some people, when they're getting into lizards, they see the Crested Geckos and Leopard Geckos are beginner reptiles, so they go for that. But then if you're not really into Leopard Geckos and Crested Geckos, they can just kind of be left behind, which is sad. So if you are really into Chahouas, you can get one, but just be aware they are slightly quicker than Crested Geckos. They tend to be a little harder to find and far more expensive. Oh, and when Chahouas go to the toilet, I swear it's like the worst thing I've ever smelled, like ever. I know there are reptiles that are probably worse, but honestly, Drogo, it's just terrible. Oh, what a moment to end on. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Our patron of the day is Taylor, so thank you so much to Taylor for supporting this channel for an entire year. We are so grateful. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Drogo a bit more and Chahouas in general. If you'd like to see more Chahoua videos in the future, be sure to give this a big thumbs up so I know that you have enjoyed it and want to see more of it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to 150,000. I mean, slowly but surely, and hopefully we can get there by the end of the year. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys, and goodbye.